my mother is probably the toughest person I know, and she's 78 years old, and it's because of her mental toughness. My dad's a big, burly ex-rugby player, very strong. For his 78th birthday, he did 430 push-ups. I felt so good the day that he called me, you know, because I'd done my regular 100, and my dad goes, yeah, for my birthday, I did 430. So my dad's super tough. But if you want to talk about somebody who will never give in and who will literally work themselves until they fall over, the love they have for their family or to get something done, that's my mother. And that's kind of what we wanted to do with Tough as Nails, is to say, yes, if you play in the NFL and you fight in the MMA, you're tough. It's understood.
Yeah, it's a given.
Yeah. But I wanted to explore the idea of somebody like a Michelle Kitty, who works at an airport in Cincinnati as a gate agent, or Lee Marshall, who's 62 years old with hands the size of dinner plates, who's put 10,000 roofs up in his life. He lives in St. Louis. And I wanted to explore the whole scope of what Tough as Nails means: strength, endurance, agility, life skills, and mental toughness. And that's really what, to me, separates from other competition shows where it's all about the physical. I really just wanted to have something that was more encompassing.
Yeah, well, I think now we know a little more about where you get it from. It sounds like from your parents. Don't I'm not going to let it slide that you just like casually mentioned your 100 push-ups a day routine, which that's our Phil. And I'm sure doing this biking across the country or something amazing. But I did want to see how you're doing first off. Before we talk about the show, how have you been managing this pandemic and the quarantine? You're a guy who likes to get around, to go places, to do things. This must be a little challenging.
Yeah, so this is the longest that I've ever been in one spot in my entire 35-year career. I started back in the mid-'80s, probably when you were born. And this is literally the longest that I have ever been in one spot. So yeah. It's a little odd, but I feel so lucky that I have this show to produce and an amazing team who have found a way to work from home. And now that we get to share this show with an audience is super exciting. And the response has been really good. And it's very heartfelt. And I feel like this country, more content that's a little more heartfelt, that's more inclusive, and that unites us and focuses on the fact that we are different, that we come in different skin shades, and we come from different backgrounds, but there's something that unites all of us. And what are those things? We care about our families. We care about each other deep down. I really believe that regardless of who we vote for, we do care. And we just have to try to get back to the things that unite us instead of the things that are dividing us. There's just too much energy right now on why somebody is wrong and why somebody else is right and why this person thinks this and that. I came to America as an immigrant because America represented change. It represented unity. I mean, it's all in the name of this country. And I'm hoping that this show helps us just cast aside all the politics for a little while and go, you know what? I love Michelle and I love Lee and I love Melissa on her farm in Ohio and Danny the drywall, and I love that Miles is out in the forest making sure it doesn't burn down, and Tara, who's a rod buster, who's a woman and one of the few women that's making change and inspiring young girls to think about getting in the trades, that we can just maybe say, hey, here's what's right and here's what unites us for a change, rather than just this constant barrage, you're right and you're wrong. And it's not what this country to me is all about.
Yeah, well, and the timing is pretty amazing. Obviously, you filmed this prior to the pandemic, but obviously a lot of the conversation has been, the essential workers, the people who are keeping this country going, and so inadvertently you're coming along at a perfect time shine a light on some of these folks and talk about kind of the timing.
Yeah, we couldn't have timed it better. I mean, I think because we've known each other for quite a while. You know that I've been trying to pitch this show. I've been pitching the show, working on the show with my wife and producing partner for many, many years. And I remember way back when I was told, a competition reality show with people doing physical challenges. This is going way back before there was Ninja, before there were any of those shows. And people don't want to watch that. And my whole thing was I wanted to, I think it's great. Those shows are great shows. I'm a fan of those shows. But I wanted to do something that was a little bit more about men and women, real men and women in real life. And when I say real life, I'm talking about people like Lynette Key, who was homeless, who was in a homeless shelter, who went to a welding course, who became a welder, who lost custody of her kids, but then got the custody of her kids back again and got her life back together and became this amazing welder. She gets up at 4 every day. She drives an hour and a half to work. She works a full day. She goes to a second job. She stops off at the grocery store on the way home, gets groceries, goes home, cooks the groceries for her kids, freezes them so that they have a meal for the next night, goes to bed late hours, gets up the next morning, 4 o'clock, and does it again and again. And I wanted to have a show that got those hardworking Americans who are doing those hard yards every day in real life, who are real tough, and many of whom don't even know about the idea of going. It's like the last thing on their mind to be going on a reality show or to become an influencer. They're just trying to make ends meet, and I wanted to try to do that. They're people that are not necessarily ready for the cover of a magazine. They don't necessarily look ripped, and they've got flaws, and they're proud of them, and they're a little rough around the edges, but that's what makes them special. And that's most people in America are not perfect and not ready for the cover of a magazine. And so it was more that a show that was going to have a little bit of an edge to it. It's a little bit gritty and grimy. I don't know if you've noticed the look of the show is not, it's not as crispy and clean looking as a lot of shows. It has a bit of a rough edge to it.
I like that. I like the fact that you see the drones, you see the cameras every once in a while. It's a little more down and dirty, just like, everyone's hands and how dirty they're getting during the day. Let's talk about that casting, because that casting, I think, it's really fantastic, and it's fascinating to me. The real sort of depth and diversity in who you cast, including quite a few folks who are my age and even older. I mean, you mentioned Lee 62 and getting the job done. Talk about what you were looking for in finding folks and how you wanted to balance who was on the show.
Well, believe it or not, Linda Goodridge is somebody that we found, identified in 2013. She's somebody that's been on our radar for that long. Lynette Key, that I have been talking to online since the end of 2018. A young associate started the original casting, and it was literally a matter of reaching out to unions and reaching out to people, and we couldn't say exactly what the show was about or that it had absolutely been picked up. And a lot of people were not socially active, were not active, in social media. And so the casting was incredibly difficult in the beginning. And then we got a fantastic casting director in Jenny Hope. She came on and she understood the heart and soul that we were trying to get with the cast. And then we just went on a nationwide search. I literally drove across the country, stopping in major cities, including Times Square in New York. And I invited people to come up to the stage. And that's where we found people like Lee Marshall. Lee Marshall, who in tonight's episode becomes a major star. I mean, he's just TV gold, and he's just got a heart of gold. He's America's toughest granddad. He's amazing, and just such a sweet, soulful man, and a powerful man. I mean, if he was 25 on the show, he would destroy everybody. At 62, he's amazing, and and he was driving to work, and his wife called him and said, "Hey, I just heard Phil Keoghan from Amazing Race on the radio, and they're casting. You should pop on down." So Lee Marshall just rocked up, and as soon as he walked up on the stage and shook my hand, just about crushed it to death because it was so big and powerful. I just knew, it was like, wow, Lee Marshall, the roofer, 10,000 roofs, maybe more. This man is awesome. And the thing that makes this show different, speaking of the casting, is I always have been frustrated with shows. I've always been frustrated with the idea that you spend all these months looking for these incredible people, in this case, the best of the best in their chosen trades, and then they get knocked out episode after episode, and you lose the all that work that you've done to find these people. And so with the format, I was like, okay, let's have, and the idea came from the Tour de France, actually, an overall winner, the winner of the Tour de France, you have an overall winner, and then you have a team competition. And so I thought, what happens if somebody gets knocked out of the individual competition, but they stay in competition, so that there's money to be won in the team competition, and nobody goes home with empty pockets. Everybody gets something, and yet, yes, we do have the big $200,000 prize and the truck. So you still got that big overall winner, but you also have a team competition, and that team dynamic, so cool to watch.
Yeah. No, even after that first episode, my son already, like, he picked a Savage Crew. He's like, there's something about Savage Crew that he loves. So people are already rooting for their teams this early on. And the idea that, even the folks who are voted off, they at least get to go home with some money. And, $2,000 for an afternoon's work, that ain't bad. That ain't bad. You mentioned Michelle as well. She's another one that you don't underestimate her, right? I mean, she's never been the bottom two just yet, and she's managing. I think surprised that some people did underestimate her. She's from the baggage world and the airport, but she's holding her own so far. So again, the older folks, don't sleep on them.
So, Michael, you were breaking up for me a little bit, but I think who you're talking about is Michelle Kitty. 62-year-old Michelle Kitty. Yeah. So
Michelle's amazing.
Yeah. So Michelle, also in her 60s, and somebody that we met in Cincinnati when we were driving up, and also someone who just rocked up. Now, Michelle, she epitomizes what it means to not judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
They can assess somebody, but Michelle Kitty, she really does emphasize this whole idea that, you must not judge anybody by the way they look. And she punches way above her weight. And you're going to see that throughout the whole series. You're going to see a lot of surprises where you're going to be like, really? And it's like, yeah, really. Because we're not just about the strength and the endurance. It is about agility, life skills. What do you do with your number one set of tools, which are your hands?
How dangerous do things get? I mean, they're using some serious tools. There are moments where I'm like, I hope they don't slice a finger off. This maybe make for good TV. I'm not sure, but it gets kind of intense, some of these challenges.
Yeah. So a lot of viewers were concerned about that, and rightly so. But you've got to understand that every single one of the people that came on our show, you think of Lee or Danny Moody or Lynette, who's a welder, Tara, in her job, Melissa working on a farm. These are all people that every day they're using tools, their eye-hand coordination, and their life skills, what they do every single day, they're so closely connected to the physical world. So, instead of typing away on a computer every day, and I know you're very good at it, they're picking up hand tools. They're using electric tools. They have a method of working where they've got that connection between knowing how to do a job properly and then executing it with their number one set of tools, their hands, and then using tools as of their hands. So yeah, I never worried me in the slightest. I was lucky enough to grow up with my to go to my grandparents' place when I was at high school, and every school holidays I worked with my grandfather, and he had more tools than anybody I've ever met. He was a mechanic and an aero mechanic in World War II. He taught me how to use tools, how to use a knife properly, how to use a screwdriver properly, how to use a lathe, and all of those life skills with everything that I do. And you think, well, what's that got to do with television? Well, it was also the work ethic that he taught me about preparing for a job, doing the job properly, cleaning up after the job. And then as you get older, sharing your knowledge with somebody else. That's a huge Nails is about as well, because everybody who's on this show has something that they want to impart to young people to say, hey, education doesn't just come from an institution. Education can also come from being an apprentice and learning from a master tradesperson, and those skills that are handed down from generation to generation, which is something we need when we have 3,000 vacant trade jobs in this country, because somehow people think that if you don't go to university, that somehow you're less than somebody else who's highly skilled at doing a trade, which is ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yeah, and another thing that I really appreciate from the show is that you mentioned sort of the teamwork, the camaraderie, and I love that. And you show a little bit of it at the end of this episode, even the folks from different teams getting together after the challenge to sort of talk about their background and bond that way. And there's already you're seeing quite a bit of bonding and sort of people rooting for each other, and it's not nasty. There's no backstabbing. People aren't plotting against each other. It's a real, a positive sort of depiction of these shows. Talk a little bit about that. And again, wanting to sort of, not go sort of the backstabbing sort of, negative route.
Yeah, well, look, there's some tension on the show. I'll tell you that. Things do get heated. I mean, in a few episodes, you're going to see some heat happen. You've got a bunch of A-types who are all very good at what they do, and then they're suddenly put on a job site working with some stranger. There's trust issues about, well, okay, am I going to let Michael take this job over, or am I going to take control? So yes, there's
you don't want me to take the job over. You take it. You don't want me.
But there is that jostling, but it's all real world stuff. It's stuff that happens on construction sites and happens on the farm, and they figure it out. And underneath it all, and this is the key, there isn't a vindictiveness in all of it. It is truly, it's coming from a good place. They have a deep respect for each other, and you'll see that on the journey that they go on throughout this whole journey on Tough as Nails. You look at somebody like Murph, who's served this country, who's being prepared to put his life on the line for freedom, for us. That takes a special type of person. This man has a deep soul and a wonderful heart. But he's also about tough love too, because if you're in the military, you got to suck it up sometimes and just do what you're told and don't complain and knuckle your way through things. So you're going to see all of that strength of character, and people like Murph and everybody in this show is special in their own way. And by the end of it, you're going to feel a warmth, because again, going back to my original point, criticize. It's easy to point fingers. It's easy to try to make everything black and white and, oh, this is good and this is bad. But as with anything in life, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of stuff where it's not necessarily just one thing or just the other. And the part that's really hard about uniting a country or people is the stuff in between the extreme points of view. That's the hard part, is how do you reach across here and connect, make that connection, so that you don't always have to agree with somebody, but you find a way to reach across and understand, where is that coming from, this mindset, this hatred, this bigotry or misunderstanding? Where is that coming from? Understanding. And so you're going to see a lot of that on the show, where people effort to understand understand their competitors and to work together. They're people that we need more of. We need more people like our cast in terms of where their passion is to do the best possible job that they can. There's a pride that they have in their jobs that we could all do with more of. And I hope that by the time field, without thinking about who is that person and what are they contributing and how essential to making this country run, that you and I can flush toilets, turn on the power, that things function in the world. And right now, during this very challenging time, the people that are on top of nails and so many others, those essential workers who are putting their lives on the line, dealing with COVID patients, the orderlies that are in hospitals, wheeling people in and out, those people we now understand more than ever, I think, maybe since World War II, since Rosie the Riveter, that we need these people and they deserve our respect. And the next time someone comes to your house to unplug a drain, to fix a leaky roof, to fix the window, whatever that is, that trade where they're skilled and they take pride in what they do, we see that as valuable to our world and our society, and that is as important as any other person who takes pride in what they do, whether they're a lawyer or a doctor and somebody who's went to school. We need these people, or a dentist, because we don't want people mucking around with their teeth if they haven't gone to school. But we should also respect those who have got their chops and their skills in a trade job as well.
Hear, hear, Phil Keoghan. Hey, Phil, while we have you, obviously a lot of folks are also curious on the status of Amazing Race. We know you have a season in the can that's finally going to see the light of day this fall on Wednesdays. So we're stoked about that. But tell me real quick how it all went down. I know you guys were shooting another season and then suddenly you had to stop production. That must have been really obviously unusual. And what was that like, sort of being there and realizing you had to stop everything and go home?
Well, a very difficult conversation with the cast. You know, my heart went out to them, for all of us, having to tell the cast who had taken time off work, who had sacrificed a lot to come onto the show, that we had to go home. And at that point, you know, there were some people, and listen, rightly so, because we just didn't understand the scope of this, who thought that we were all overreacting to what was happening. What do you mean? Like, we don't have to shut down. Do we have to shut down? I mean, how bad it's going to get? But we made the right decision. We got everybody home safely to their families, which we told them was our number one priority. It's always been our number one priority on Amazing Race. When we are away on the road, out in the world, it's the one thing we lose sleep over, is making sure that we can get these amazing people around the world safely as a team, working together to protect them, so that because they're writing a script for us, they're giving us the show we love so much, that we get them home safely. So that was the number one priority when all of this happened. And of course, it didn't take long for us to realize that we hadn't overreacted, that we had done the right thing, and they realized. And our goal is obviously to get back out and to finish the show, to finish season 33. But I am a little disheartened by what I'm seeing with the graph and the number of cases. And I'm disheartened by, I just feel like we have it in us to get this line down, but it is going to take a sense of everybody seeing the idea that we are in this together. Because until that happens, until people realize that even if they don't have it, even if they think that they could get through it and they don't feel vulnerable, that other people are, and we have to take responsibility to help protect them as well. And we could learn a lot from the World War II generation as far as sacrifice for others, sacrifice for the country.
Well, I was going to say your home country obviously has done quite well with COVID, and they're celebrating. Looks like
Prime Minister.
Yeah. They obviously have managed to so far really kick it aside. So fingers crossed. Clearly things are working out well down there.
Yeah, they made some pretty tough decisions about the lockdown. My parents they're elderly. They weren't allowed out of the house. I think it was anybody who was over 70 was literally not allowed out in public. So they shut the elders out of, or shut them at home, or asked them to be at home. And a lot of sacrifices for a
Yeah, well, obviously, fingers crossed that eventually we think things turn a little bit to normal. I am concerned, you're right, that it may be a while before you get to go back out on the road again and finish that season. We always need more Amazing Race. So fingers crossed there. And again, congratulations on premiere of Texas Nails. We're waiting your word on season 2, but I assume you're sort of looking at maybe new casts, new folks, opportunity down the road, hopefully for more people to get their shot at the Tough as Nails crown.
Yeah, so we have actually started casting for a season 2. We don't have an official pickup, but what's interesting is there's been a tremendous amount of interest from overseas, other countries wanting the format. They love we haven't, the format hasn't even officially gone out, but people from overseas have come and contacted us to get the format. And I think it's because it is different from the point of view that nobody gets sent home, but you've got these 2 mutually exclusive competitions happening at one time. All your characters stay. They love that it's heartfelt. They love that they love the backstories. They love that we really get deep on the backstories. Ultimately, it's about the people who do things as opposed to things with people that do them. There's a lot of shows where you get a show where there's a lot of action, and then you throw a whole bunch of people into that activity and really get to know the people who do that activity, because it's more about people doing the activity. Ours is much more about the same people that you get to know, that have real character arcs, that you get invested in. Oh, and by the way, they happen to do these things. So it's, front and center is storytelling with heart, rich characters, telegenic characters who are really important to share, that we get to know. We don't have to rush to get to know them. We don't have to jam everything into the first episode. We can reveal more and more about their character as time goes on, so that by the time you get to the end of Tough as Nails, you really feel like, I really get who Miles Polk is. He is a forestry worker. I really get him. I know he's got a young child. I know he loves his wife. And you really understand where he's come from. And that's important to us, that people walk away from this and they feel good about the people they've spent time with over the last, 10 episodes.
Tell me about that theme real quick. Who wrote that song? Where'd that song come from? So tell me about that theme song. Looks like our connection may be. Is our connection falling apart?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not sure what it's like for everybody at home, but unfortunately, and because you're so articulate, I've been able to make out the questions, but I have been struggling a little bit with the connection and hearing.
Yeah. That's all right. Well, why don't we end things by giving us a little preview of what you expect for the next couple weeks.
I think what you said to me was, what can we expect to see in the coming weeks? I think that's what you said to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're going to see is you're going to see more challenges that are real sites. So one of the key factors on the show is that we don't make sets, that it's not an obstacle course, that it's a real job site, and that we plug into the job site. So a lot of these ideas came from my family background. I built fences with my dad. You're going to see them building fences. I spent time working on a farm doing chores with my dad. You're going to see some of those. My working class background has a lot of coal miners, gold miners. My grandfather used to talk about these challenges that they had at the coal mine where they would shovel coal. That's where that idea came from. So within any site, on any construction site, on a farm, wherever it is, there's always this rivalry, like who can lift more hay bales and put them in the barn, and who can shovel more coal, and who can put up the irrigation faster or build a fence faster. And so we wanted to take that competitive aspect of the job and make that what the challenges were. And so you're going to see us go to a sand factory, and power. People are going to be working with power lines, and they're going to be working with oil barrels, and it's real job sites, real jobs that people do. And then we put our contestants, somebody like Young, who's a firefighter. He comes from his family originally comes from Korea. He's the first of his family to go into the fire department. And we're going to take a fireman like Young, and we're going to put him in a challenge on a farm, and he'd be like, I've never been on a farm. You know, the only thing I know about a cow is I've seen one on a milk carton, you know? So it's about how these Jack and Jills of all trades adapt to real jobs. And again, because they're able to cope quite well. But you're going to see some major surprises. If people get to the end of this season and they think and their opinion about the definition of what tough is hasn't changed, then we haven't done our job. Because I guarantee you watch this series, you're going to look at what the meaning of tough is different light.
Tough as Nails, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on CBS. And, of course, Amazing Race this fall on CBS. So looking forward to that, too. Phil, always a pleasure, man. Take care. Hopefully you'll be out riding that bike again soon. Get back on that bike.
Yeah, I'm not riding it right now. But I'm not doing it right now, but I hope to. Yeah, I hope so. Thank you so much for talking to me.